LCARA Ham Radio presents a Time Machine Tuesday vintage video release.
Welcome to Lake Cumberland Amateur Radio Association. You can find us at LCARA.net, on Facebook, on YouTube, and on Instagram. If you're enjoying the videos we're producing here at LCARA, please help our club out by hitting that subscribe button. Also, give us some feedback on our videos. Click the like button, share with anybody who may find it interesting, and be sure and hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified of the next video release.
All right, folks, this is Chris, KY4CKP, and this is the first in our series on radios for LCARA. And we're going to cover one of the most ubiquitous, one of the most common and controversial, probably, radios out there for folks. And that's one of many Chinese type radios, branded radios, and one of the best known, probably, the Baofeng. And there's a ton of models of these, and there's a ton of clones and copies of these. And the quality varies, the price points vary, but they're pretty inexpensive, $30, $25, $30, $35, $40. I've got several different models here, and there's one or two slightly cheaper ones and a couple of more expensive ones. But this is a variety of things. We can see there's some different face plates and color schemes and that kind of stuff. All right, folks, we're back for the next segment. And in this segment on the Baofeng UV5R family of radios, we're going to take a look at how to do some simple programming so you can get on the air quickly. So we want to program a repeater. Now, I'm going to move these notes out of the way. Again, they'll be in the description below. But we'll run through those. And so what I've got now is I've simply got repeaterbook.com open in a web browser. Now, RepeaterBook is an awesome resource. And they also have, as you can see there, applications for your portable device, right? Your phone, your tablet, iOS, and Android. So, and I have it on my devices. So I highly recommend you do that. So just with your phone, your tablet, again, you would have this very same basic resource and you can look up. So whatever part of the country you're in, if you're traveling or whatever, and I do this at times, and so does Brian, KY4BDP. If we take a handy talkie with us, in fact, I did this on a relatively recent trip to California, visiting some family, and I took a handy talkie and was able to find some repeaters out there and make contact with some folks while I was on the road. So you can just put in your location where you are. And so just as an example, if we scroll down here a little bit, under the directory section here, North American repeaters, let's just click there. And we'll just kind of show you how you can go in here. It's pretty simple to use. The app on your device is pretty simple as well. Now, I live in Kentucky, so we'll click on Kentucky. And then it's going to bring up different frequencies and things that we can look for. And they even have stuff covering digital modes and those kinds of things. But let's take a look at a pretty common and pretty well used frequency for handy talkies, 2 meters. Now, I've got radios that, in fact, the radio you see here, it can do 1.25, 1 1/4, 220, and then 70 centimeters. Right? It is a tri-band. A lot of these handy talkies are dual band. They would usually do 2 meters and 70 centimeters. And 2 meters tends to be pretty busy. You can find traffic on the other two, but 2 meters is pretty busy. So let's go into that one. Should give us a high chance of success here. And wherever you are, whatever state you went into, it's going to bring up a list of repeaters. Right? So we're just doing some scrolling here. Now, again, there's a big one that's going to be easy for us to demonstrate on. So let me just go down and find it. These are in numerical order. And so I'm looking for one that's at 940, 146, 940. Here we go. So we have the one down here, 146, 940, here in Lexington. It's up on a big, tall building downtown, the tallest building we have downtown. And we can see some of the information we'll need for that. But we'll just go ahead and click on that and get into the detail page for that particular repeater. Now, a lot of local ham clubs, and again, we do recommend joining a local ham club, having an online YouTube channels you subscribe to like LCARA, or joining a club remotely. That can be a good resource as well. But having a local ham club where you can sometimes get face-to-face with folks is always a good resource as well. And so Again, this is on a big, tall building downtown, and we can see the information here on this left-hand side that we would need to program into our radio to be able to communicate with it correctly. So let's run through those steps. And again, I had those notes up earlier, and they'll be down in the description below. There's only a few settings you'll typically need to hit. And sometimes there's a couple of these you may not need at all, depending on how the repeater has been set up. So let me turn on this radio. And hopefully the microphone picked that up. It's currently in channel mode. And if you have some preset memory channels, you can run through those. And I actually do have this fully programmed using Chirp. My brother and our Elmer at LCARA like to use RT systems. They're very similar pieces of software. If there's a lot of interest in seeing how to use those software packages, let us know in the comments. We could work in a video on those at some point. But you can do this manually as well. And it's not like there's dozens and dozens of settings. As you saw in that list, there was only maybe 5 or 6 settings, depending on how that repeater is set up. And you can make yourself a little cheat sheet and just keep it with the radio. So let's switch over. We have this orange button, VFO memory. So hopefully you can hear that. Now it says frequency mode. I'm going to go ahead and turn down the volume for now. We'll see the screen there. Try to make sure that there's not too much glare on that. Maybe that's a little better. So this repeater, it's at 146,940. So we're in frequency mode. So right now we can use the keypad and just start typing it in. 146,940. And it would be announcing that. I just have the volume turned down. So now we've got the frequency put in there. We've got a few more bits of information we need to work on. You can see that there's an offset. And you see that it has downlink, uplink. And the downlink is 146,340. A lot of 2-meter repeaters are going to use a -6 offset, which we can see there on the screen. So if you take 940 and you subtract 6 from that, it'll become 340. So that's just what they're showing us there. So we'll see how we can set that up. And we also see that there's an uplink tone and a downlink tone. So we'll go into those settings as well. Now, some repeaters don't use tones at all. And so you may see CSQ, carrier squelch. It just means you leave that off. Just makes it a little bit simpler. Or they may use one tone and not the other. In this case, we're going to use both tones, so it's easy enough to do that. And we'll see how to set that -6 offset. So let's go ahead and go in here. Let's hit the memory button in the upper left corner by the numeric keypad. And it comes into the first menu selection, which happens to be squelch. I have it set at 2. You could go to 1. You just want to make sure it's high enough to keep background noise to a minimum, so you're not hearing the background noise constantly, but it still lets decent communications come through. I think 3 is the default on that. So we go into to menu, and if you refer back to that list that was on the screen earlier, and again it'll be in the description of the video. You come into the menu. Let's go into selection 11, and you can go straight there. Now, when you first come into menu, let's go ahead and exit. When you first come in the menu, you've got these up arrow, down arrows right above my thumb. You can navigate with those as well. Okay. Or if you know the memory location you want to go to, you can go straight in. So I've got those memory locations set in those notes that you can refer back to, but you can just manually navigate up and down. Just a little faster if you know exactly where you want to go. So we're going to 11, and so that's the receives CSS tone. Continuous tone carrier squelch. So for this one, and of course it times out if you don't go in there. If you hit menu a second time, so menu brings you into the menus, and then when you're on a particular selection, this is selection 11 off that list, when you hit menu again, it goes down into sort of the program mode. Again, it'll time out if you don't do something quickly enough. So we hit menu first time to go in there, menu again to go down in there. Now we can use these up-down arrow keys, and we just scroll through. There's a number of preset frequencies. And so whatever your receiver set to, in our case, it's 88.5. We just go up until we see 88.5. And then when you hit menu one more time, it locks that in. Now that was position 11. Let's go to 13. 13 is the transmit. You see we had RCTCSS, and now we have TCTCS. And we see it's off, so let's hit menu. And again, we see that the particular repeater we're looking at here uses 88.5 again. Now, whatever numbers you see there, you just use the up-down arrow keys, and you just go up to them. So there's 88.5, and we'll lock it in. And then how about the offsets? Well, for the offsets, it's 25. Again, this is referring back to that list we showed earlier, and it'll be in the description. So go to 25. You can see that this offset is off. We don't have anything set right now. So you can have it off. It can be a positive offset or a negative offset. The 440, the 70 centimeter repeaters tend to use a positive 5 offset. The 2 meter repeaters tend to use a negative 0.6 offset. But whatever numbers that repeater's been configured for, you'll put those in. So we go back in here. We're in position, memory position, or menu position 25 there, and hit menu again to go down to the actual setting itself, and then just arrow up. So we need a negative offset, and hit menu again to lock it in. And then position 26 is in those notes there where you set the actual offset itself. So we went to 26, we hit menu to go to the setting, and in this case it's a 0.6, so it'll be 0, 0, 0, 6, 0, 0. So that gives us a 0.6 offset. Lock it in. And for this particular repeater, that's all we really need. Now, you could go to menu position 27, and that would let you choose a memory position to store this information into. So if you want to be able to recall this easily and use this again later, you can do this again manually, or you can use software like Chirp or RT Systems. I've already got this radio kind of fully programmed. I don't need to set that. On these Baofengs, you'll typically have 128 memory positions. Some radios may have, say, 200 memory position. It's a pretty good number, depending on if you travel a lot. You can certainly fill them up. But in your local area, you may only need 5, 10, 20, 30 of those. But we've got this set now. We've got 146, 940 at the top of the screen. If you can see it up there, I think it's coming through on the camera. You see there's a little negative, right? So we have the negative offset, and when you push transmit, you'll see it switch over. Right, so we had that negative 0.6 offset. So when we're transmitting, you see the uplink on the screen there, we should see it drop to 146, 340. But then when we're listening, like we see here, it should be at the 146, 940. So if we're good to go and we push the transmit button, we should see it put up the orange light for transmit. And if everything's correct, then we should get a response, some kind of response from the repeater. Now, I'm going to turn up the volume. We may not get a full repeater identification. It depends on how recently it's done one, but we should at least see it kind of blip and come back and know that we've unlocked the repeater and we can talk to it now. So we'll do a quick, now you don't want to do this a lot. This is sort of called chunking the repeater. You're going to do some quick testing. If you're going to do a lot of testing, it's good to announce your call sign. Hey, this is KY4CKP, testing repeater access, testing new antenna, something like that. We're just going to do a quick test here. See if I can get pressure on that switch. There we go. We see that it came back and it was actually doing part of its identification cycle. So we know we've got it configured correctly. And then if not, if you didn't get something right, you just come back here and check these values and check those settings again that were in the notes. So that's about it. Similar settings if you're doing 440 repeaters, 125 repeaters. Again, simplex, you would just put in the number on two or three radios, and you can just talk direct. Just make sure the frequency is clear. But this is how we can program a repeater. All right, folks, we're back. This is Chris, KY4CKP. We've talked about this, and Brian, KY4BDP, is going to talk about it in his video. And we did the entire series on antennas. We've shown the programming, and I just want to show the antennas. And you'll notice that the one on what should be your right-hand side, the purple light keeps coming on. The green light keeps coming on. And you may think, oh, you're receiving a signal. And I don't know if this microphone's picking up. I don't have the volume up very loud, but it's just noise. It's picking up some kind of extraneous signal, and it's hard to say what it is. It's not this repeater. It's not that this repeater is actually activating. It's picking up some other kind of noise. I don't know if it's a baby monitor. Who knows what it is. But it keeps going off that you can see there, but it's not legitimate traffic in a sense. So it's going to wear out your battery, and it's just not doing us a whole lot of good. And so what I want to show, I've got these two radios that are the same. They've been programmed the same. But I do want to kind of show off these antennas and the difference in the antennas. So let me go ahead and turn that volume down. It shouldn't be very loud, but I'll go ahead and turn it down. But you'll still see it activating there. And it's fairly constant. even though there's not really a proper signal there. But let's pan up briefly. Bear with me. I'll try to keep it smooth. And let's see the difference in these two antennas. Rubber ducky is very short, and that Nagoya goes way on up there. Okay. So again, this is something that almost everyone would recommend. You don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money on the radio. Now, there's great radios out there. Brian's going to go over the FT2DR from Yaesu. There's great Kenwoods. There's great ICOMs with lots of features. We've shown a few of the simple features with these radios just to get you on the air quickly. But one of the first things almost anyone will tell you, spend a little extra money. You may only spend $30, $35 on the radio. That's okay. These radios can get you on the air very quickly. But spend a few more dollars, 15, 20, on the antenna. And get a legitimate antenna. Buy from a good source. Don't just go to eBay and find the cheapest example of a so-called antenna. Sometimes those are good deals. Many times they're fake and they're not much better than the rubber ducky. Could be even worse than the rubber ducky your radio came with. So I always upgrade. We talked about the batteries. I always upgrade to typically these Nagoyas. Brian has a diamond antenna he's going to be showing off for his radio. You can see how much longer it is. Okay. Now, for these radios right here, because they're tri-band, I actually have another antenna. I'll just bring it up a little bit. It's even longer. It's even a little bit longer than the 771 model antenna. It's the 320A, because again, it's a tri-band antenna. But the main point is here, the difference between a rubber ducky and a better antenna. And so the first thing is what we're seeing right here. You're seeing all this activity, but it's not even real activity. It's just false sounds coming in that it's triggering on. And the other thing is, of course, you're not going to be able to transmit very well. Now, I can't show that as well here today. I can hit the transmit button. We can hit the receiver or the repeater here. I think both of these will hit it. I'm going to turn up the volumes just a little bit. I'm going to try not to get it too loud for you folks. But when I do it on the one on the right with that short rubber ducky antenna, it's you can hear when the repeater comes back, it's very scratchy. Let's trigger to see what happens. Okay, so you saw they both activated. When they had legitimate repeater traffic, they both activated, but the one on the right is just picking up some kind of extraneous noise. And when the repeater does a full identification cycle, which they only do ever so often, it's scratchier on the one on the right. So I just wanted to show that. There's going to be a big difference. Okay, there's going to be a big difference in the antennas. Spend a little bit of extra money. You'll get so much more from the ground up. You'll get so much more from that radio. You'll be able to reach out probably 2 or 3 times as far. Maybe hit an extra repeater or 2, or even get to that first repeater that you just might not be hitting with the little rubber ducky you get from the ground up. So I just wanted to show that real fast and have it. I'll turn that volume back down because it's just going to keep activating even though there's not really, as I say, a legitimate signal. But that'll finish up this segment. Just wanted to cover that. I think it's an important part, and it's not a whole lot of extra money. We can get an inexpensive radio. We can get on the air quickly. They're not that hard to program. We went over those few simple menu options, and we'll have that list in the description below as well. And all these radios, even though they're slight variations on a theme, all these Baofengs right here, 3 or 4 different versions, but they all have the same basic menu system. So we'll wrap up this segment, and then we'll be bringing you folks right back. All right, folks, we're back, and I just wanted to do a quick little wrap up of our introduction to radios for the new ham with your technician license and the world of handy talkies. Baofengs. We're going to cover some other radios throughout this entire series, of course. But the different Chinese manufacturers, and Baofeng's probably the best known, but there's Anytone and Talkcoop, and there's a bunch of brands that are all very similar. I don't think they're a bad way to start. We don't always have to spend a ton of money. We would like to have quality items, and at some point you may upgrade to a more quality item if you feel the need. I haven't really felt the need so far. Now, if I get into more digital operations, I probably will. We'll see what happens. But for 2 meter, 70 centimeter typically, maybe even 1.25 meter, I do have these radios. I'll just bring one in briefly. This variation is actually a tri-band radio. It can do 1.25. I happen to have a unit in my car that can do that. So I bought a couple of these just so I can play with those when I'm out and mobile and camping and whatever I'm doing. But the Baofeng radio, I think they get a bad reputation from some quarters of the ham radio world unnecessarily. Hey, if all you want to buy is Kenwood and ICOM and Yaesu, they're great radios. They're great brands. But for the cost of one of those, you could have probably 3, 4, 5 of these with some accessories, and get yourself and maybe a buddy or two started, or your wife or girlfriend or whoever that may be interested in this, right? And it's just not that expensive. So we talked about the accessories. Definitely number one, better antenna. I like to have at least one spare battery. So whether you get the standard size battery or the extended runtime batteries, I like the extended runtime. It makes the radio a little bigger, and sometimes that feels nicer in your hand. And then the programming cable, we mentioned the programming cable, and get a quality one. Get a quality one. Again, all this is still pretty inexpensive, but get a pretty decent source. eBay has some good vendors. I use eBay for some things, but I'll use Amazon for others, and I might pay a little bit more for Amazon. And you get the quote unquote free shipping. We know we've basically prepaid for it. It's okay. But the return policies and things, might make you feel a little more comfortable. But not a bad way to start with these radios. You can get one or two of these pretty inexpensively. And as we showed how to program it. Get on the air quickly. Try to start enjoying your new hobby quickly, and yet not for too much money. Now, as a freebie, I wanted to talk about one more thing you might want to look into. And you don't have to do this. This is definitely an optional category. But there's a company, and they make these manuals called Nifty, these Nifty mini manuals. Now, I'm pretty sure I've got one for the Baofeng radios, but it's in one of my bags somewhere. I didn't find it offhand. But I've also, as you can see here, I've got one for this Echolink DXSR8T. I have this in my car right now for some mobile HF. And I've got one for the Yaesu FT891, which I'm using at home right now. Even though it's sort of meant to be a portable radio, it works great for an introductory base station. And I'm making contacts all around the world. These are just little quick references. Now, of course, you've got your manual to your radio, and there's usually online digital copies of the manual, and you can make those available. In fact, I do. I have a little personal Dropbox. You have some online repository, and I can get to those from any phone or tablet or laptop, and then copies on my systems. You may print it up. You may just want to print up those directions that were at the early part of the video when we told you about the programming, and then make your own little cheat sheet. Just have those few directions and the information for a handful of your local repeaters. And maybe laminate that and just keep that with the radio. Keep a copy of your license with you or with your radio, which you're supposed to do. Now, I've never had to show my license, even when I go out to parks and things. Nobody's ever questioned that, but it's just what we're supposed to do. And just print up a copy of your license and fold it up, put it in a baggie or something. So just want to finish up this segment in this opening video on the series for radios here for LCARA. And we're going to cover some different radios, and some of them are going to be a little bit more expensive than others. But you don't have to spend a whole lot, and you can get started in your new hobby and have a lot of fun. And as you can see here, there's different colors and things. There's yellow ones and blue ones and the black ones and these, of course. So just wanted to start wrapping things up. So this is Chris, KY4CKP, and for LCARA 73.